All right, so we're gonna do this is we're just gonna solve a bunch of inequalities. Okay, so the first inequality that they want us to solve that they're going to give us is they say solve the absolute value of x minus 4 is less than 8, and so we're asked to solve this. And now before we jump into that, what I want you guys to keep in mind that if I have some stuff inside an absolute value bracket, okay? So I've got these absolute value brackets. We're gonna come back to this in a second. But if I've got some stuff here inside the absolute value brackets, when I say the absolute value, that means the distance from a given point, right? So if I have a distance from a given point equals 3, that means I'm going to move 3 units from a given point. Now, what can I plug in there? Well, we all know that I could plug in 3, right? But isn't there another thing I could plug in there? -3. So I have 2 values that I could plug in, and what that means is when we leave it like this, I'm going to say here's my 0. If I think of +3, that means I go 1, 2, 3 units to the right. If I go 1, 2, 3 units to the left, then -3. Both of those, in both cases, I move exactly 3 units, right? So that's where this comes from, right? That's what we're measuring. Now, okay. Think of on the number line, the plus or minus sign really represents the direction we're heading. So what we want to do is we want to figure out for this graphically what we're doing is we want to figure out how far we have to move, but we don't want to move any more than 8 units from a number, right? Does that make sense? We don't want to move any more than 8 units from a number. Where our middle number is actually +4. So when you have it written like this, we're really considering moving from 4, but I don't want to go any more than 8. This has to be less than 8. And if I go this way, it has to be less than 8. Okay? So x has to be less than 8, x has to be less than 8. How many ever units? And I don't know what those numbers are. But I know that the absolute value, in fact I should write this correctly, I have 2 solutions. I have one where x minus 4 goes this way, and then I have the absolute value of x minus 4 going this way has to be less than 8. But I don't know which x, does that make sense? So to solve something like this, it's not that hard. If I have the absolute value of x minus 4 is less than 8, I have to consider both the positive possibility and the negative possibility. In other words, what I want to do is I want to say -8 less than x minus 4 less than 8. And that addresses both issues, right? So now I solve this just like I would a regular inequality. We call this a compound inequality because it's like 2 things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 to all 3 sides. These cancel, and then this becomes -4 is less than x is less than 12. And that's it. That's our answer. Does that make sense? So now the interval, what numbers can I plug in? So what am I saying? I'm saying that I could choose any number from -4. So if I graph this on a number line, I have -4, And then over here I have 12, right? Do I include the -4? No. So I'm going to put an open circle or a parentheses here. Do I include the 12? No. So I'm going to do an open parentheses here. Now I know the value is going to be trapped between the two of those because the way it's set up. And how do I know? Well, if I cover this up, the statement says -4 is less than x. So what value for x makes that statement true? Huh? Just somebody blurt out a number we could plug in for x that makes that statement true. 6. So 6 is to this side of 4, right? So from here we're going to go this way, right? Now, what about this? What number could I plug in here to make this statement true? 6, right? And 6 from 12 is this way. So this is how you fill that in. Now, you could write this in interval notation as well, like that. Now we're almost done. The textbook wants us to solve this graphically. So let's do it. Let me close this out. Whoops, close this out. No, I don't want to save that. Fire up the handy dandy calculator. I have a calculator now. I bought some batteries, brought a calculator from home. I feel prepared. Alright, here we go. Where did it go? Let's try that again. Okay. There it is. Alright, so now how would I solve this graphically? Yes?
You do put -4 and 12 as coordinates in parentheses.
You could do it that way, but really I want to graph it. So the first place I got to start is I've got to graph the function. So remember to find the absolute value brackets for your calculator. You hit second, catalog. Whoops, you got to hit second first. Hit second, catalog, and it'll pull up absolute value. That's the first thing on the list. And so then I'm going to plug in x minus 4, right? So we solved this the same way we did the other inequalities, okay? What we did is we took the left-hand side of the equation, but we're going to call this an inequality because that's what it is. So we're going to take the left-hand side of the inequality, plug that in for one function, and you guys tell me what I plug in for the second function. I'm waiting for you guys to tell me. We've plugged in the left-hand side. Now we need to plug in the right side. Very good. It is 8 o'clock in the morning. All right, so now let's graph this bad boy. I'm going to zoom out a little bit because it doesn't want to cooperate with me. Oh, I need to zoom out just a little more. I need to go, my X needs to be a little bigger. Let's do like 15. How's that? There we go. So, this line here represents y equals 8. And this is my graphing function. So, when it says less than 8, first we got to pick out the numbers. Okay? So, where do I get the numbers from? Looking at the graph. Right? We know because algebraically we solve -4 and 12, but how do I get those numbers to pop up on this graph somewhere? Find the intersection. So I'm going to hit second trace, which brings up the calculus, or not calculus, calculate menu. Okay? And then I'm going to scroll over to one of the intersections. Almost there, good. First curve, yep. Second curve, yep. Guess, yep. intersection 12. So when x equals 12, what does y equal? 8. Now my question to you is, how do we know to choose, how do we know to get to this point? Well, because the original function said less than 8. So we're looking for all y values less than 8. Does that make sense? So if I come a little bit to the left of x, in other words, if I come to 11.8, what is my y value? Less than 8. If I keep going in that direction, what is my y value? Less than 8. It's always less than 8. And I keep going this way, this way, this way, this way, less than 8, less than 8, negative x numbers, negative x numbers, negative x numbers, uh-oh, not less than 8. Okay? Do you see what we're doing? Do you see how that works graphically? So now how could I sketch that graph to let me know what the answer is? Well, there's a couple of things. I have a function that comes down like this. And what we're going to do is we have this point here, negative 4, comma 8, and then we have this point here, 12, comma 8. And what values were we interested in? Just these values, which occurs between negative 4 and 12. By the way, what number is this? What is the vertex? What number is this right here? It's not quite drawn to scale, but this is 4. That's no accident. It's a positive 4, but what did I add to both sides? Positive 4. That's not an accident. Watch that pattern. It'll come up a lot. Any questions on that? No? Okay, good.